Assalamu alaikum, my name is Mohammed Momin and today we'll be doing static routing using routers. First of all, we need a few networks, so I'm going to make two networks over here which we are going to connect with each other through routing. To make a network, we just basically need a few PCs, so I'll add two PCs over here and I'll add two PCs over here, and I'll also add two switches, one for this network and another for this network. Now since we'll be routing them, since we'll be connecting these two networks with each other through the use of router, I'll also place two routers for them, one for each. Now I'll connect them using wires. I'll use this one because it automatically just decides the port and the type of wire which it will use. It makes it easier. Let's connect it like this. Now I have to assign the IP addresses to the PCs. I'm just going to give them a random IP address. For example, here I'll do 100. Actually, so now I'll configure them in the settings. Actually, I made a mistake. This one is also going to be 110. Okay, so now we have configured, we have actually given IP address to all four of these PCs, and now we will connect this router with this router. Now actually we cannot directly connect these routers, and we'll have to insert a port for them. And actually to connect them, we're going to use this wire. I'm actually going to insert a port over here first. So I'm just going to click on this router. I'm going to go here. Let's see, zoom in on this. First we'll have to turn this off, and then I'll add this port over here. Just drag and drop it, and then I'll turn it back on. Cancel this. I'll do the same for the other one. Add the port, and zoom in on this, turn it off, drag and drop the port, and then turn it back on. There we go. Now I'm going to connect it through the serial port over here. I'll do the same one for both. Now what I have to do is that I have to give the IP address to this port and to this, and then I'll have to give a port to this, and then I'll have to give an IP address to this port as well as this port. Now how we're going to do this is we're going to click on the router, we're going to go to CLI, and then this is where we do a bit of coding. First press no, press return. Okay, now first of all we'll press EN, which is for the global settings, and then we'll press configure along with T, means configure terminals. Now we're in the configuration mode. Now we have to configure this interface. So to configure this interface, I need to know which one it is. So I'll come over here, and this gives me the name SE0/1/0. So I'll come back over here and I'll write interface SE0/1/0, and then I'll press enter. Now we're in this interface, and now to give it an IP address, I'll just simply write IP address, and I'll give it any IP address I want. So for this, I'll just give it 10.0.0.1, I also give the subnet mask alongside it, and since it's class here, the subnet mask will be 255.0.0.0, and here we have assigned the IP address to this router. Then I press no shutdown, and that is done. And I'll press exit over here so that we can exit this terminal or that interface. Okay, now I've given the IP address to this port or this terminal or this interface. Now I have to do the same for this one. So I'm going to come over here, see which one this is. This is gigabit internet, gigabit ethernet 0/0/0, or short form GIG and 0/0/0. Okay, so I'll write interface GIG 0/0/0, so that I can use this interface. I can give it an IP address. Now I'm inside this. Now I'm actually able to configure this interface. So I'll just write IP address, and I'll give it one. I'll give it. Actually, I'll give it the same as the one I gave to the PC. So 100.0.0. And I'll give this 0.1. I'll do this. I'll give it the subnet mask. Then we'll write no shutdown, and then we'll exit. I'm actually going to do the same for the other one, but I'll also write the IP addresses which I gave. This is the IP address of this port. Then this port I gave, I think 10. I'll do the same for the other one, and most probably fast forward that part. We're just going to see if this communicates, but it still probably won't, and I'll explain why. It will communicate with each other if it's the same network, but it won't communicate with the other network. For example, if I go PC1 to PC2, it will fail. Why? Because we still haven't configured the routing. We have connected these both routers with each other, but we have to make it route the message. Now to do that, we're going to actually go in this router. I'm going to go in CLI, and then over here you're going to stay in the configuration mode. And if you are not in this configuration, for example, if you exited out of here, then you just have to configure T and you'll come over here. Okay, so inside here, what we will do is that we will write IP route. Alright, actually, let me write the IP address over here, the one I gave. To this one I gave one. Forgot which one I gave, so I couldn't use them. Over here, which one did I give? Yeah, I gave 10.2. Give it 10.2. Okay, so now we will configure. Okay, so I'm here, and the router number 0, and I will write IP route, and then I have to route a message from here to here. For example, the message should go from here to here, okay, to the left one. So if I'm routing the left router, What I have to do is that I have to write the IP address of this port and then of this port. But actually we're going to not write here 0.1, we'll actually write 0.0. We're going to write 0.0.0.0. We'll also write subnet mask. It's like we're giving it a new IP address. After that we have to write through which it will route. And it will route through this 10.0.0.2. So I'll write 10.0.0.2. And this has been routed. I'll press exit, write it down. Okay, so after this I'll do the same for the other one. I'll go to router number 2 and I'll change configuration mode. I'll write IP route and then I'll write 100.0.0.0 and I'll give it the subnet mask and then I'll write the IP address through which it will route, and it will route through the serial port of this port, and the IP address of that port we have 10.0.0.1, and this has also been routed, so I'll just press exit. And now if we send a message it will be successful, but the first time it will always fail. For example, it failed over here, and then if I do it again it should be successful. It failed again. And actually we'll see why it failed again. Okay, so actually I think I know why it failed, because we didn't give it a default gateway. Like for example, we have the PCs over here, we go to IP configuration, and over here we gave it its IP address, but we also have to give it a gateway so that it can send the message through here. So I'll give it a gateway, and what our gateway basically is, it is this port. Okay, this port is our gateway of this network, that the message that we send from these PCs will go through this gateway. So actually I'm going to go to that PC and I write the gateway 100.0.0.1. I'll do the same for this one. And now hopefully it will work. Send a message from PC 1 to 2 and it will fail for the first time. The second time, yes, it was successful. Now I don't know why it fails for the first time, but it will always fail whenever you do it for the first time. Now whenever I send, it's going to be successful, but if I try from this PC to this, it is going to fail, I think, the first time. Yes, and then if I give it again, then it will be successful over here. I can delete this and show you again. This is successful now every time. Okay, so now this was basic routing, static routing using two networks or two routers. Now what if we wanted to add another network? So I'll do the same as I did for the rest. I'll add another network over here. I'll add two PCs. Okay, so now as you can see, this has been turned to green. I will also do for this. Oh, sorry. We actually also have to configure this serial port. We actually configured this one, but we didn't configure this serial port. And this serial port is actually SE0/1/1. So I'll come to router number 2, this router. I'll select this, and I'm in CLI, and I'm in only router, so I'll just write configure T. I'll go to configuration, and then inside here I'll press interface, right interface along with the serial number SE0/1/1. I'll write IP address, and I decided I'll give it 20.0.0.3, and subnet mask will be 255.0.0.0. Okay, now shut down, and that is also activated. Now it's green. I won't exit. Okay, so now all of this has been configured, but still we won't be able to send a message from this network or this network to this PC because we still haven't routed this network with the rest. We routed these two networks together, so if I send a message from these two PCs to these two, it will still send properly. But this network will not be able to send or receive messages. For that, we have to do some routing. So I'll just go to PC3, the router 3. And over here, we are in configuration, so it's same procedure, but I'll let IP route. And it's okay. So now since I'm in router 3, I have to route messages from this network as well as this network. Okay, so for example, message is coming from this network, so it will come through this port, this serial port, and through this gateway. So if that's the gateway, then I will give it the route address will be 110.0.0.0, subnet mask along with it, and through which it will pass through the IP address 20.0.0.3. So I'll just write 0.20.0.0.3. Now this has been routed, and I think this will receive, actually we'll also write exit, and then we'll go back to configure T, and then I'll also do the same IP route. Okay, actually we are inside this one, right? Okay, so now for example, if the message is coming from this PC, from this network, so it will first pass this gateway through this, and then it will come over here and over through this port. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to route it multiple times. Like I got IP route. This gateway will be repeated, but the serial IP address will change. So IP route will be 100.0.0.0 along with the subnet mask, and then we'll write 10.0.0.1 that it will go through this serial port. We'll press enter, exit, then I'll write configure T again. Okay, so now in configure T, I'll write IP route 100.0.0.1, and then I'll write the IP address, actually not .0, then I'll give it subnet mask, and then I'll have to write the IP address of this serial port, that this message coming from here will go through this port. So actually I also have to route it through there. So I'll write 10.0.0.0.2. Here we go. Write exit, and then we configure T. Okay, so now once this message comes from here, we'll also have to route it through this port using this gateway. This gateway will also use this port 20.0.0.3. So to do this, I'll just write IP route again. I'll write 100.0.0.0 along with the subnet mask, and then I'll write the IP address of 20.0.0.3. Now press exit, and I think this should be it for routing of router 3 or the network 3. Now this can receive messages from these two networks, but we also have to configure the rest two of these networks to receive messages from this network. So I'll just go to router 2, and actually router 2 has already been configured for router 1, so or router 0, so I won't have to do that. I'll just have to configure it for router 3, meaning that I'll just have to use this gateway and this serial port. So in router 2, I'm actually already in configuration mode, so I'll have to configure t and let IP route. I'll use the gateway 120.0.0 since it's this gateway, router 3, along with the subnet mask. After that, I'll follow it with the serial port of router 3. That will be 20.0.0.4. Then I'll press exit. There we go. Router 2 has been configured to receive messages from router 3. And now we have to configure router 0 to, or the first network, to receive messages from router 3. Now to do that, this has been at the start, so I'll start en to come into global settings. I will configure t. Okay, now router 0, or the first network, this network, will receive its messages from this network, so it will have to use this gateway. So this gateway won't change. IP route and this address won't change. What will change will be this IP address of this serial port, this and this. So now to configure it, I'll write IP route. I'll give it the IP address of that gateway along with the subnet mask, and then I'll write 20.0.0.4 because it will firstly pass through this serial port. Press enter, press exit, press configure t again, then I'll press IP route, then type route, and then I'll enter the same gateway along with the subnet mask, and then this time I'll actually write 20.0.0.3. I'll exit this, then I will configure t again, then I will type sorry, then I'll write IP route again, then I'll write the same gateway. This time I'll give it the serial port 10.0.0.2 because it will pass through there. Exit, and this has been configured hopefully correctly. So I'll firstly try to bring communication between network 2, between this network and this. So I'll just press PC3 and I'll send a message to PC4. Firstly, it will fail, like over here, as you can see this failed, and then I'll send it again. It should be successful. Yes, it was successful, which means that both of these networks have been configured successfully. Now if I send a message from this PC4 to 3, it's also successful, which means that these two networks have been routed successfully. Now I'm going to test for router 0 with router 3, or network 1 with network 3. Let's delete this. Click the message. I'll go from PC1 to PC4. It succeeded directly. Didn't expect that. PC0 to PC5. I guess this failed, and firstly it will fail. Then from 0 to 5 again, and it is successful. So it means that all three of our networks have been successfully routed with each other, and they can communicate with each other. And this is a separate network, this as well, and this, and they are able to communicate with each other, sort of forming a large network, I guess. You can also add more networks to this, and the procedure will be same. We'll have to just route them with each other. I hope you understood. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments.